Meghan may have known Andrew before she met Harry.
Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time? There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s.
A storm has erupted at the heart of the monarchy after a former British journalist claimed he holds documented proof of a decades-old secret connection between Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew. Within hours, fragments of the interview ignited headlines, reviving memories of scandals the palace struggled to survive. Sources say King Charles ordered an urgent, tightly guarded meeting to reassess events reaching back to 2001. As allegations and private coordination surface, could this exposure finally push them both out? Meghan and Andrew under fire. In a quiet room inside Buckingham Palace, the air felt heavy, almost unmoving. The scent of polished wood and freshly poured tea lingered as King Charles sat behind his desk, staring at the glow of a screen that refused to dim. His hands rested calmly on the leather surface, but the stillness was deceptive. Years of storms had taught him that the loudest crises often begin in silence. The video playing before him featured a former royal reporter, a man long frozen out of palace circles after digging too deeply into the private lives of Charles and Princess Diana decades earlier. Now, that same voice claimed to hold undeniable proof of a secret connection between Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew stretching back more than 20 years. Charles did not react with visible anger. He had survived scandals that nearly crushed the crown: the collapse of his marriage, Diana's tragic death, and Andrew's disgrace following his association with Jeffrey Epstein. Outrage no longer served him. What unsettled him now was calculation. If this allegation gained traction, it would not simply reopen Andrew's wounds. It could also damage the carefully built narrative that Harry and Meghan had shaped since stepping away from royal duties. His thoughts drifted back to 2001. At that time, Andrew was still a globe-trotting prince, carrying royal privilege with confidence. Meghan, meanwhile, was a young actress building a career in Los Angeles, far removed from palace corridors. If their worlds had crossed in ways the public never knew, the consequences today would be explosive. The king slowly set the tablet aside. No dramatic gesture, no raised voice. Instead, he reached for the internal phone and summoned his private secretary. His instructions were clear and measured. Trace the source, track every outlet circulating the claim, assess its reach, and determine its credibility. Containment had to begin immediately. In an age where a rumor could circle the globe before dawn, hesitation was dangerous. Across the Atlantic, inside the gated calm of Montecito, Meghan stood before tall windows overlooking the bright California landscape. The sun painted everything gold, but the headlines flashing across her assistant's messages were anything but warm. Since her 2018 wedding and her 2020 departure from royal life, she had built a public image of strength and independence. Yet even strong armor can feel tight under pressure. She did not rush to respond. No instant statement, no social media rebuttal. Instead, she remained silent, thinking carefully. Silence she knew could protect, or it could allow others to shape the story without her. Old memories surfaced quietly. Early career years, industry parties, ambitious networking, unfamiliar faces whose names blurred with time. The past can feel distant until someone drags it forward. Back in London, the absence of official comment created space, and space on the internet rarely stays empty. Online forums filled with theories, commentators dissected photos, timelines, guest lists. Unverified claims multiplied and began to sound like facts simply because they were repeated so often. King Charles rose from his chair and walked toward the window overlooking the palace courtyard. Guards changed shifts with precise timing, unaware of the tension unfolding above them. The monarch understood something clearly. This was no longer about family disagreements. It was about institutional survival. Every rumor carried the potential to weaken public trust. He spoke softly, more to himself than to anyone else. He needed facts, not noise. he needed proof before the narrative hardened beyond repair. Because once a story settles into public belief, correcting it becomes almost impossible. In California, Meghan remained still, her expression controlled. In London, Charles tightened his resolve. 2 continents, 1 growing storm. Both sides are waiting, calculating, and preparing. But behind closed doors, something more structured was already beginning to take shape. Documents being requested, timelines being reconstructed, old contacts being revisited. And that is where everything shifts. What exactly would it uncover, and who stands to lose the most when the full truth finally surfaces? Let's break it down. Buckingham Palace's investigation. Behind the towering gates and polished marble halls of Buckingham Palace, something quiet but urgent was unfolding. It did not begin with a public statement or a royal appearance. It began in silence. At the King's direct instruction, a small internal review was launched. Not the kind that makes headlines, but the kind that moves carefully through old records and forgotten details. A senior security aide, a man known for his calm presence and sharp instincts, was tasked with revisiting claims that had suddenly resurfaced in the press. His mission was simple: trace the origins, examine the evidence, and determine whether there was any truth hidden beneath the noise. Archived files from the early 20s were reopened. Event guest lists were cross-checked. Travel logs, photographs, correspondence, both printed and digital, were reviewed piece by piece. What initially emerged brought cautious relief. The allegations circulating online appeared to rest largely on second-hand stories, vague party recollections, and fragments of rumor repeated so often they began to sound like fact. There was no concrete documentation, no verified proof, nothing that could withstand serious legal scrutiny. For a brief moment, it seemed the storm might pass. But in today's world, official reviews move slower than viral content. Before the palace could steady itself, social media took control of the narrative. An image appeared, blurry, low quality, tinted with the unmistakable yellow hue of early 2000s digital cameras. It showed a luxury yacht anchored under blazing Mediterranean sunlight. Laughter seemed frozen in the frame. Champagne glasses glinted in the heat. And at the center stood a young woman. Dark hair, confident smile, a striking resemblance to Meghan Markle. Beside her stood Prince Andrew. His arm appeared to rest around her waist, not formally, not distantly, but casually, intimately. The kind of posture that invites interpretation, the kind that ignites speculation. Within hours, the image was everywhere. X, Instagram, news blogs, reaction channels. The photograph spread faster than any official clarification ever could. What had been dismissed as rumor suddenly felt, to many online observers, like confirmation. Public opinion shifted with shocking speed. Tabloids launched into full-scale analysis. Headlines grew sharper. Pundits debated body language. Forensic image specialists were invited to comment on facial features, cheekbones, nose shape, smile lines. Some pointed to similarities. Others urged caution. The conversation was no longer about verified facts. It became about perception. Supporters of Meghan Markle argued that the image showed clear signs of digital alteration. They highlighted lighting inconsistencies, pixel distortions, shadow misalignments. But online outrage does not wait for technical breakdowns. The louder voices were often the most certain ones, and certainty, even when misplaced, spreads quickly. Soon, the question dominating comment sections was not whether the image was authentic, but what else might be hidden. The palace found itself in a familiar but dangerous position, reacting to a narrative it did not create. Internal investigators continued their methodical work, but outside those palace walls, a digital courtroom had already formed. And in that court, speculation felt stronger than silence. What made the situation more volatile was the timing. Trust in institutions had already been fragile. Past controversies lingered in public memory. The resurfacing of any connection, even an unverified one, reopened old wounds. Was the photograph genuine? Was it manipulated? Was it a case of mistaken identity? Or something more deliberate? As analysts debated and critics sharpened their accusations, attention turned to one person whose voice had not yet been heard. And that leads us directly into Meghan Markle's reaction to the allegation. Because when the silence finally breaks, will it clear the air? Or deepen the mystery even further? Let's find out. Turning crisis into control. In the sun-drenched seclusion of Montecito, California, tension had thickened into something almost tangible inside Meghan Markle's estate. In her private office, the pale glow of the computer screen reflected sharply across her face, highlighting the storm of fury and shock behind her composed exterior. She sat rigid, fingers clutching the edge of her desk so tightly her knuckles whitened, her mind already spinning into action. This was no ordinary rumor. It was a direct strike at her reputation, her carefully constructed image, and the empire she had spent years building. Every movement, every tap of her fingers against polished wood radiated resolve. Without hesitation, she reached for her phone, lips pressed into a thin, unyielding line. Calls to top-tier legal teams in London and New York were made with a precision that mirrored a chess master moving a decisive piece. While photo forensics experts debated whether the damning image had been manipulated with AI or Photoshop, the accusations themselves had already begun their corrosive work, threatening to warp public perception and weaponize the past against her present. Meghan understood this was a calculated assault, a campaign designed to crush her credibility and discredit her life's work. Her legal machine sprang into action like a well-oiled army. Cease and desist letters, stamped with the insignia of elite law firms and carrying rates that could make ordinary citizens gasp, streamed to the most influential media outlets and social platforms. Every detail of her response was overseen personally. Scripts were perfected, lighting adjusted, camera angles chosen to convey unshakable calm. When her official statement was released, Meghan's gaze met the camera with steel-clad determination, a clear declaration. The viral photograph was fabricated, nothing more than the product of malicious manipulation, and any attempt to smear her character would meet relentless opposition. Yet even as Meghan countered the narrative with cold, calculated precision, her husband, Prince Harry, appeared beside her at a small charity event. He smiled for the cameras, but the gesture was fragile. A veneer stretched thin over raw anxiety. His hands fidgeted, eyes darted across the crowd, scanning for threats unseen. Exhaustion and tension etched deep lines into his face. Though protective, even he could not entirely shield himself from doubt. The reemergence of Andrew's name, already tainted by scandal, stirred an unfamiliar unease, challenging his conviction that they were mere victims of a hostile media. Public reaction only intensified the pressure. Meghan's meticulous counteroffensive split opinion sharply. Half the world hailed her as a symbol of resilience, a woman targeted by outdated structures, yet standing unbroken. The other half whispered caution, invoking the age-old saying, "Where there's smoke, there's fire." Even the quietest corners of Buckingham Palace felt the ripples, as suspicion began to weave its way into discussions among aides and advisors, challenging loyalties and reopening old wounds. Across continents, tension mounted like a taut wire ready to snap. Every legal letter, every controlled statement, every photo analyzed under expert eyes contributed to a growing storm. Neither silence nor speed could fully contain it. The world was watching, opinions hardened, alliances questioned, and every move carried extraordinary consequences. And now, the result is out, and the palace prepares to act. One truth becomes clear. This is no ordinary scandal. It is a collision of secrecy, strategy, and exposure. What shocking truths as finally emerge, and who will be left standing when the full story is revealed? Let's find out. Palace investigation reveals truth behind controversy. Within the silent, ornate halls of Buckingham Palace, King Charles carried a heavy, unspoken burden. Though he longed to protect and trust his sons, he maintained a measured distance, offering neither public statements nor displays of reassurance. His presence was quiet, authoritative, observing from afar, while privately instructing his security and advisory team to continue a thorough investigation. The palace machinery moved in hushed precision, each step deliberate, like clockwork set in motion by his unwavering command. The first break came from an unexpected corner. A London tabloid, led by the relentless instincts of a veteran reporter, dug through old advertising and media archives dating back 2 decades. For days, they sifted through glossy model rosters, luxury brand promotions, and travel records from the early 2000s. And finally, the truth surfaced. The woman in the contentious photograph, previously assumed to be Meghan Markle, was not her. Instead, she was likely a semi-professional Canadian model whose striking smile and facial features bore an uncanny resemblance to Meghan's. She had appeared in a luxury yacht advertisement around the same period as Prince Andrew's event, explaining the eerie similarity that had sparked global outrage. The revelation hit the press like a cold splash of water. Headlines were quickly corrected. Social media chatter slowed, and for a moment, the Sussex camp in America exhaled in relief. Legal and media victories seemed secured, at least temporarily, but relief in the palace was far from complete. King Charles held the newspaper in his hands, his eyes betraying no sign of satisfaction. He stood by the window, staring into the silent forecourt. A gnawing unease lingered. The photograph might have been clarified, the model identified, but the allegations themselves were far from settled. The story's shadow persisted, reaching across oceans to a daughter-in-law halfway around the world. 3 days later, a winter twilight settled over London, slipping through the narrow windows of a secluded manor where Charles had chosen to confront the storm directly. Seated in a faded velvet armchair, his fingers clasped tightly, he faced the former reporter whose revelations had stirred the controversy. Gone was the man's on-screen bravado. Here he was subdued, eyes darting, yet still carrying the quiet satisfaction of a private audience with the monarch. The silence between them was almost tangible, punctuated only by the faint crackle of logs in the fireplace. The reporter spoke first, recounting details from 2 decades prior. The alleged encounter had not occurred aboard a sun-drenched yacht, but inside a discreet suburban villa on London's outskirts. There, protocol had been abandoned, replaced by intimacy and carefully orchestrated privacy. A young woman, uncannily resembling Meghan Markle, had been present, mingling among powerful figures, with Prince Andrew prominent in the room. The accounts suggested subtle but deliberate attention: private early-morning palace tours, late-night drives in tinted vehicles, and staged encounters designed to leave no trace in official records. King Charles listened, stone-faced as doubt gnawed at him. The timeline matched snippets of Meghan's European trips years ago. Every gesture, every recalled habit, felt unsettlingly familiar, yet there was no physical proof. No contracts, no photographs, no documentation, only memory and fragmented anecdotes. The reporter's recollections hung in the room like a double-edged blade, unprovable yet dangerous. As the meeting ended, darkness had fully enveloped the manor. Charles walked the corridor alone, each step echoing the weight of uncertainty. Back in his car, he spoke to his private secretary, voice heavy with fatigue, acknowledging the terrifying power of unprovable truths. In the world of monarchy and media, suspicion alone could fracture trust, destabilize reputations, and haunt a family silently but relentlessly. Gazing out the window, the king's reflection stared back at him, a reminder of both vulnerability and the unyielding pressure of legacy. And this looming shadow would not remain contained for long. With whispers spreading across continents, one question burned hotter than any tabloid. How did Prince Harry respond to this storm of doubt, secrecy, and suspicion? Stay with us, because his shocking response may change everything we thought we knew. Wrestling with secrets and suspicion. In the shadowed stillness of the Montecito estate, tension hung thick over Prince Harry. The dim yellow lamplight barely penetrated the weight of anxiety that settled over him following a long-distance call from London. His hands gripped the phone so tightly that his knuckles turned white, the echo of King Charles's voice lingering in his mind. The message had not been a command, nor an accusation. It was a warning, a quiet, urgent plea from a father determined to prevent his son from being engulfed by an unfolding storm. Harry sank into the leather chair, his thoughts racing. Details of a secret meeting with a former reporter now clicked together with an unnerving precision. Memories of Meghan's early years in Europe, once framed as ambition and perseverance, now felt shadowed with ambiguity. The coincidences of time, place, and circumstance aligned like sharp-edged puzzle pieces, hinting at connections he had never anticipated. The illusion of safety and control that the Sussexes had built over the years began to fracture beneath him. He rose, pacing the darkened room, short, ragged breaths, betraying the turmoil within. Folders were swept off the desk in a flurry, the dry rustle of falling papers echoing the inner chaos he could not escape. Questions long unspoken in their marriage now surged forward, unsettling him in ways he had never imagined. Each revelation, each fragment of past events, gnawed at the sense of certainty he had held about the life he shared with Meghan. Meanwhile, Meghan's reaction was markedly different. Standing silently in the hallway outside, her shadow stretched under the dim light, composed and unreadable. She did not enter the room, did not offer comfort or explanation. Her calm, measured demeanor sent its own message, neither admission nor denial, but an unmistakable display of calculated restraint. The absence of visible anger or panic only heightened Harry's unease, leaving him to wrestle with a creeping sense of doubt and vulnerability. The media, as always, amplified the tension. International coverage splintered into two distinct narratives, one side combing through her past for evidence linking her to Prince Andrew, the other fiercely defending her against attacks built on conjecture and incomplete information. The Sussex brand, carefully curated around transparency, compassion, and purpose, suddenly appeared vulnerable. Business partnerships grew cautious, invitations waned, replaced by wary observation and silent scrutiny. The stakes were no longer merely personal. The implications reached into professional and public realms, threatening reputations painstakingly established over years. That night, Harry remained awake, seated alone in the expansive living room, the moonlight casting long shadows across his gaunt features. Each passing moment reinforced the unnerving realization there might be chapters of his wife's past he had never fully understood. Across the Atlantic, in the palace, King Charles observed the Winter Gardens with unwavering attention. The indulgent patience of a father had been replaced by the measured vigilance of a monarch determined to protect the institution. He conveyed to advisors in hushed tones that, should irrefutable proof surface, the royal family would act decisively. No leniency would be afforded. Meanwhile, the media storm began to wane, subsumed by newer, flashier headlines. Corrections about the fabricated yacht photograph slowly appeared on prominent platforms, but the scale and intensity of public engagement had already left indelible marks. The digital age ensured that while the initial shock subsided, the ripple effects of perception and suspicion lingered far longer than the actual facts. The Sussexes, caught between public scrutiny, media speculation, and royal oversight, now faced a reality in which every past action, every connection, every rumor could shift perception and reshape the narrative. Amid it all, the monarchy's mechanisms for protecting itself come into sharp focus. Tools designed for crises like this could very well be applied to Meghan. Let's explore how these measures work, and why the actions taken are as shocking as they are decisive. How the monarchy protects itself in a modern scandal. Few modern royal controversies illustrate institutional crisis management like Prince Andrew's fall from public duty. His retreat from official life was not sudden. It unfolded gradually under relentless media scrutiny, growing public outrage, and questions about judgment and accountability. Examining how the palace navigated this storm offers a revealing glimpse into how the monarchy protects itself when reputational risk reaches a breaking point. The turning point came in 2019, after Andrew's widely criticized televised interview regarding his association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Public reaction was swift and unforgiving. Within days, he announced he would step back from public duties. Initially framed as a temporary decision, it quickly became clear that this withdrawal was far more lasting. The monarchy had calculated the damage and concluded that distance was necessary to preserve the institution's credibility. But stepping back was only the start. In 2022, Buckingham Palace confirmed that Andrew would lose his military affiliations and royal patronages. These moves carried weight both symbolically and practically. Military titles are prestigious, and patronages connect royals to charities, regiments, and public institutions. Their removal sent a clear message. Andrew would no longer act as a representative of the crown. He retained the title of Duke of York, but his role as a working royal had ended. The timing and manner of these decisions also revealed much about palace strategy. Historically, the monarchy often relied on silence, hoping controversies would fade. In Andrew's case, silence was insufficient. Public opinion had shifted irrevocably. Social media amplified scrutiny far beyond the reach of traditional press cycles, and pressure came not just from newspapers, but also from citizens, veterans groups, and members of parliament. The civil lawsuit filed in the United States further escalated the stakes. Andrew denied all allegations, but the legal case carried enormous reputational risk. In early 2022, he reached an out-of-court settlement without admitting liability. Legally, the matter was closed. Publicly, however, debate continued. The damage to perception had already been done. This episode became a defining moment for King Charles III, even before his accession. Charles had long signaled a desire for a streamlined monarchy, fewer working royals, sharper focus, and reduced room for controversy. Andrew's withdrawal aligned with that vision, sending a message that the institution comes first. The case set a clear precedent. Public roles are conditional. Family status may remain, but official representation can be withdrawn when reputational harm threatens the crown. The situation also highlighted the pressures of the digital era. Viral content, online commentary, and international coverage create crises that cannot be contained behind palace walls. The Andrew saga demonstrated that the monarchy is willing to act decisively when its image is at stake. Yet questions linger. Were the actions reactive or pre-planned? Did the palace act quickly enough, or only when public outrage demanded it? The Andrew precedent shows that no royal role is untouchable when institutional survival is on the line. And now, how has the fallout from this scandal shaped Meghan's public and private life in the days ahead? Stay tuned, because the consequences could be far deeper than anyone expected. The aftermath and fallout. After the storm of scrutiny and controversy, Meghan Markle re-emerged in public with careful restraint. At charity events and live appearances, she opted for muted, understated outfits and light, natural makeup, projecting the quiet dignity of someone who had endured a tempest. Every gesture, the hand lightly placed over her heart, the subtle tilt of her head while listening, appeared deliberate, designed to regain the trust and support of her audience. Yet behind this composed exterior, the confident sparkle that had once defined her presence seemed tempered, replaced by a measured caution. She moved as if the ground beneath her feet were fragile, capable of giving way without warning. Prince Harry, too, carried the weight of the scandal. On the surface, he maintained the image of a stable, united family before the cameras. But beneath the public veneer, his efforts felt forced. In photographs with Meghan, his touch was careful, restrained, lacking the warmth and certainty of the past. Away from the spotlight, he withdrew into solitude, immersing himself in extreme sports and other distractions as a way to escape the unanswered questions that lingered in his mind. The warnings his father had once given about hidden risks did not fade. They smoldered quietly, obstructing any attempt at genuine peace beside the woman he had once adored. Meanwhile, life at Buckingham Palace appeared to return to its usual rhythm, but the undercurrent of tension remained. King Charles often walked alone through the winter gardens, where bare branches reached toward a slate-gray sky. Even without fresh evidence, he understood that the scandal had permanently altered perceptions. Public faith in the Sussex brand had been shaken, and the shadow of controversy, whether grounded in fact or fiction, had been etched into collective memory. The king recognized a stark truth of the digital era. Perception now carried as much weight as reality. A single well-placed doubt could inflict far more damage than formal accusations, and past events, no matter how deeply buried, could resurface through social media, news cycles, or public curiosity. As Charles closed the final dossier on the matter, he felt neither victory nor relief. Secrets, he knew, might remain submerged, but the ripples they create could echo indefinitely, a quiet reminder of how fragile reputation and honor can be in a world where a single click can reshape destiny. So, what do you think about this kind of scandal? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.